Hello, everybody. Happy holidays, and welcome to the GL Holiday Special. So what I decided to do for this video, it's one of my discussion or conversation videos where I grab a friend and we just have a chat about some piece of media. This time around, it is 8 Crazy Nights, the Adam Sandler animated holiday movie from 2002. It is, in fact, the 20th anniversary of that movie. So I asked my friend Tierra Shea to hop on the mic and discuss this movie with me, specifically to try and make it better. I have very negative feelings about the movie overall. She has generally more positive leaning feelings towards the movie, and this discussion is the result of all that, of trying to come up with ideas, ways that the movie could have been changed. It's basically a podcast, this kind of video, so there will be a few relevant visuals throughout, but mostly it's just something to put on a little bit longer form, just relax, have a nice evening in, and I really hope you enjoy our discussion. Once again, happy holidays, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Cool. Welcome everyone to a special video for the 20th anniversary of 8 Crazy Nights, an animated classic.
A Jewish animated classic.
Debatable. And also both parts of that are debatable. But we're going to get into it. I'm joined by a friend of the channel, Tierra Shea. I'll have links to her other internet stuff in the place where you put those. Yeah, so I was working on a video where I was looking into 8 Crazy Nights because I had just watched it for the very first time. Had never seen it. Growing up, it was one of those ones that like people would talk about at school. I don't know if it was the same thing for you.
Oh yeah, no, it was one of those where we weren't supposed to watch it because it was so kind of crude, so we would watch it as much as we could.
Yeah, and I think a little bit later on, like Step Brothers was a big one in that category too, where everybody would reference Step Brothers just like constantly. They thought it was the funniest, and then Borat, of course, and stuff like that. So I had never watched it growing up, just watched it the other day. You had watched it, as you just said, right? Quite a few times. Around release.
And then I went to try to watch it today before this and realized kind of partway through that I didn't even need to. Like it is ingrained in my memory enough that I remember the songs, I remember what's going on. So yes.
So I think you can offer a lot to this, which is our goal here today is to essentially workshop the movie, because I don't know if you hadn't already guessed, I'm not a very big fan of the movie. I can't say how I would have felt about it as a kid. I probably wouldn't have been too crazy about it then either. But like regardless of the ways in which it hasn't held up in terms of like cultural taste and tolerances and all that, which we will touch on. Beyond that, I do just think that in general, as a movie, it's really, really not very good, and kind of in a baffling way. Like it just seems like a lot of the decisions came out of nowhere, or they just kind of said, oh, that's fine, we'll leave it in, which is not typical for an animated movie because it takes a very long time to make those.
And the animation in this movie is really good. Are you going to say it's bad?
Yeah, because it is.
No, it looks nice.
What part of the animation here do you think is really rock solid?
I think it's nice to look at.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like the characters, I enjoy the way that they look. I really hate to use the basketball scene when they're shirtless, but like, I don't know. I like the way that the deer look. But then again, I don't really have background in that type of like what it should look like. But for its time and for who's behind it, I think that it looks pretty cool. I know it 8 Crazy Nights by looking at it in comparison to other animated stuff. Like I would be able to tell the difference immediately.
Okay, well, we'll get into the animation aspect later on. But yeah, no, I think it's incredibly ugly. The only thing that it reminded me of in terms of art direction execution is a bottom of the barrel South American animated Christmas special called The Christmas Tree that Red Letter Media covered on Best of the Worst many years ago.
Oh, wow.
Where just so much of the movement is stunted and the character designs seem like they're sort of based on a lot of Disney work in the 90s, but they did it poorly. Anyway, but yeah, we'll save animation for a little bit later. But basically, we're going to be workshopping the movie, talking about different elements of story and potentially the visuals and other aspects as well. Just trying to edit it.
Let's make this puppy better.
Yeah, trying to make it better as a movie, not like we're not trying to make it a completely different movie with a completely different sense of humor. And that's another thing I'll definitely touch on. But before we get to specific notes and suggestions and stuff, I think it would be good to give just a total spoiler rundown of what actually happens in the movie, just as briefly as possible. So would you like to take that? Go ahead.
Lead character, his name's Davy. He's a 30-something-year-old man who's lived in the same town, and he's kind of like the town Scrooge, like drunk, messed up one too many times, and either can go to jail or he could work with a small older man being a referee. And during his time with that referee, he is his emotions are, unlocked as, as an old flame comes back to town. That's kind of another catalyst, him getting over the trauma of his parents dying and appreciating what he has and the people who are in his life and the spirit of Hanukkah and Christmas.
Yes, and he does, sort of.
Right.
He sort of redeems himself at the very end. We learn about his past trauma and his specific negative associations with the holiday season. And just so that everybody's clear on when we talk about characters later on, the name of the volunteer basketball coach that he's working with throughout the movie is called Whitey.
Yes, Whitey.
Which led to a very strange line of dialogue later in the movie when drunk Davy is confronted by products in the mall, and at some point the GNC container of presumably protein powder says something like, well, you can run from Whitey but you can't run from us. And I was like, what did he just say?
You can run from Whitey but you ain't gonna run from us.
Right. And it makes it funny that the one who's saying that is Carl Weathers, so you're just like...
Yes, that was part of it. Yeah, that's the basic breakdown. And I mean, we'll be going through some of the biggest issues, I guess, as we, go through specific suggestions here. But overall, I was kind of shocked at just how generic so much of it felt to me. Because based on just like ads I'd seen as a kid or stuff that kids would reference at school or whatever, and the fact that it's an Adam Sandler vehicle based more or less on the popularity of the Hanukkah song, I just assumed that it would be just like really, really harsh, crude, lowbrow stuff, wall to wall. Start to finish, just a bunch of like crazy stuff, maybe some violence, plenty of fart jokes, stuff like that.
Right. A lot of fart, poop, and pee jokes.
There are a lot of those in this movie, but so much of the humor in general to me feels like stapled on as opposed to what the movie is. Because so much of it does just feel like, oh, it's just a holiday movie about someone who's going to see the light and do better and learn to care for other people. Like, it would be very easy to edit out a lot of the humor and just have an incredibly dull Adam Sandler movie. We've come up with a good number of things here.
Oh, yeah.
And the first one is just that it needs to have more Hanukkah in it. In like a lot of different ways, or even just in small ways. Because, of course, the title is a reference to Hanukkah. Our lead character is Jewish. His love interest is Jewish, and her son. Are there other specific mentions of Hanukkah outside, I guess, some in the backstory with the parents? Maybe it's touched
the parents, on. There's the little scene that I always say is one of my favorites, the little kids table of Happy Hanukkahs. That's pretty much it. Literally, Whitey's second line, or one of his early lines, is him telling everybody that he's not Jewish. And then that's pretty much it. There's no real talk about, and then at the end, Eleanor talks about, can you come over to teach us how to light the candles? And then they make a dreidel joke. And it's over. I
guess from some weird angle, someone could argue that, like, okay, well, that's more or less realistic. The idea that just in some small northeastern town, the vast majority of people would have like a Christian background, and then there's a handful of Jewish people, and the community is just not that large. So like, oh, well, it kind of makes sense that they just, it's not prominent. A lot of people aren't celebrating, but like, we just barely see any of it at all. And it seems like such an opportunity to include it. And it doesn't have to be included in like a really earnest and educational way. It could be. But if this had turned out to be just an extremely crude and unrelenting Adam Sandler comedy, it could even just be, inserted in passing. Or like he sort of experiences some of the traditions of Hanukkah basically by proxy or by accident. Maybe other characters are doing that stuff and he just happens to be around it. There's just so little of it here that I just don't, again, it just feels like standard winter holiday movie. And
Right.
by the way, some people are Jewish. But yeah, especially because the Hanukkah song is why this exists, and they have a live cut of the Hanukkah song in
Oh
the
my gosh.
credits of the movie.
The Dreydels.
Yeah, I guess Missed Opportunity kind of sums it up for me, where it could have been one of literally the only Hanukkah movies, mainstream Hanukkah movies in existence. It just sort of solidifies cultural dominance of Christianity, specifically in regards to like holiday movie stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Where it almost felt like false advertising, just in terms
Yes.
of the name of the movie and how it came about. But please, if you have more, I had written a bunch on that one, but like if you have any more suggestions or comments on that, because I
Yeah.
know we talked about it quite a bit yesterday.
I mean, one of the biggest things for me in terms of like how could have this just easily been different is that it should have just taken place over the course of 8 nights. Like you
Right.
said, false advertisement, like that, even if you don't want to make it Hanukkah themed, just make
Yeah.
it over the course of 8 nights, because then it by proxy is kind of already more Hanukkah than it is right now. And also the pacing of the movie is pretty quick as well, so it would have been very easy to make it all take place over the course of 8 nights.
Even if 4 or 5 of those nights, just we go over them in a montage towards the end, like it speeds up. It's like, oh, we see what happens then. Here's, yeah, you're right. Even just as the timeline for the movie would have been something, it would have been some kind of nominal inclusion, and even if they did want to make it a more earnest, potentially emotional topic that gets integrated into the story, I think you had mentioned that like there's even potential for either Davy's, embracing of Hanukkah stuff once again, or what is it, Jennifer is the love interest, I think?
Yes,
And her son,
Jennifer.
maybe them
Benny.
serving as an example, could have led to like other basically like closeted Jews in the
Yes.
town being like, oh yeah, like I had kind of left this part of my heritage culture behind, and even if I don't practice religiously, I still appreciate the cultural aspects, the traditions, etc. That would have been kind of great, and I think it could have been done in a way that didn't feel super heavy-handed, and it also, I would assume, would be kind of nice for a Jewish audience who, can you imagine someone like going to this movie specifically because they think they're finally gonna get like a Hanukkah movie?
Oh, for sure. Like that's one of the things when I watched it when I was younger, because I always think about the episode of Rugrats, because I celebrate Kwanzaa.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
so I was super stoked for that. That happened. That was great. I love watching holiday movies that have nothing to do with Christmas and have something more to do with the less celebrated holidays around that time, because Christmas is just like, I love it, but it really does dominate everything. And so if you don't celebrate Christmas, you feel really, really small during a time that everyone's supposed to be feeling together and all that. And so I remember watching 8 Crazy Nights and then just going like, at the end, you're just thinking, well, it's still Christmas. It's still it's still a more hearty Merry Christmas and this weak, meek, Happy Hanukkah, when like Hanukkah is supposed to be the forefront in this. I felt really bad. Yeah, like you said, like imagine going for that and then leaving the theaters and people are putting their Santa hats back on and still no one really cares about Hanukkah, and I don't really know much about it, to be completely honest, and this movie didn't help me.
Yeah, Rugrats had the episode. Rugrats also had a Passover episode. They were actually doing some kind of work, on that front, and there's just none of it here, and it feels strange, but I guess it's probably time to move on. So I guess the next bit, or the next section, is a lot of character related stuff.
Cool.
So I know that you had mentioned the character of Jennifer and
Yes.
how she's generally like handled and portrayed.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I love about her is the fact that she just gets her business told about, like she moved back to town. So that's what it is. Like it's a catalyst for Davy, is that she hasn't been in town for over 13 plus years. And now she's back and she works at the Dunkin' Donuts with her son, trying to, single parent this stuff. And yeah, she's just kind of there. She doesn't really have any other character development other than Whitey telling Davy her whole past. Like he has, and that's the other thing about Whitey that I'll get to. He has no problem just telling people other people's business, even if they ask him to stop. The only kind of information we get about Jennifer is one line from Whitey of being like, she's a divorcee, she's struggling, and she's taking care of her son. Other than that, she's just kind of scolding Davy for acting out out, and then all of a sudden she's on his side after she realizes that he's cried and is in touch with his, more emotional side. But other than that, we don't get anything from her, and she's supposed to be this woman that's going to help this man change, because he's gonna need a lot more than whatever just happened at the end of this movie.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, it's one of those things where as soon as she shows up, a movie of this caliber, you understand, like I've seen movies before, okay, this is the love interest, because there are literally no other women in the movie around Davy's age. So you're like, oh well, who does he end up with?
Yeah,
Maybe
first person he looks at, you.
Right, who I still find it very baffling that he doesn't recognize her when he sees her for the first time in this movie, because as we learned, they were like super tight buds when they were like
their first kiss.
Yeah,
they were young love. They carved their names into a tree together.
Pretty wild. I feel like even if you were only operating on your subconscious, you would recognize that person.
Right. It would have been nice if she just had a little bit more of a reason to be there, other than that he gets a girl at the end also. That's what it felt like.
But of course, him not recognizing her leads to Whitey doing all the exposition stuff of like, let me tell you what she's been up to and her situation is. Because I was trying to remember whether Davy and Jennifer have any scenes together. They have that scene where he's very rude to Jennifer's son. They have a scene where she walks in on Davy playing shirtless basketball with her son, and that's over very quickly. And then, is that it? And then like the whole closing sequence when they're at the big town party?
Pretty much, absolutely.
So that's it. So I guess we just assume that they rekindled something.
They had, I think it was during the bum diddy 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 bum bum song. Her also starting her part of the song was her acknowledging and being like, I forgive you, and clean slate, and I'm on your side for this. And now we're doing that. That's at least how I took it, because yeah, you're right. There is no actual conversation where they talk about things at all, because I guess we're supposed to believe on Jennifer's end that she knew all along that all Davy had to do was cry and, acknowledge his parents' death. But like, she couldn't help him do that at all. But
right.
She's able to recognize it in him at that meeting and then go, okay, well now I'm going to stand up with him. And now we're together.
I guess so. There are plenty of other opportunities for that. Like, she could have had a situation where she gets called into work at the last minute. They really need some help at the Dunkin' Donuts. And she's like, okay, well, I need somebody to watch my kid. I just moved back to town. I'm just kind of hanging around here by myself. Oh gosh, do I have to ask Davey?
But how did we get, that was how we got the basketball scene.
No, I know that she shows up there, but like,
no, that's why he's there. That's why the kid is there, because she had to work and left him with Whitey.
Yes, I understand that. It would have meant so much more if she had chosen to interact with Davy. Do you see what I'm saying? Even though she didn't want to, because then they would have probably talked to one another.
Right.
And had like a conversation. Or, she comes back home after Davy's been babysitting, probably badly. Little kid goes to sleep, whose name I still forget. And they have a chat over some half-hearted hot cocoa and sort of catch up. And we still know that she's very disappointed in where he's ended up and how he's dealt with everything through the years. But progress, and this is why characters have multiple scenes together in a movie, especially when there's a romantic arc, because it develops over time. And here there's no room for that, because they just don't interact.
I would have loved that, actually. That would have been really, really nice. Even just one scene like that, where when we're finally given that flashback as to like what happened with his parents and them dying that night of the basketball game.
Yeah.
There's just that one moment where she kind of reaches out to him and is like, Davy, and he's like, my parents are dead, happy Hanukkah. And then they leave, and I would have loved for her to finally be able to tell him her side of whatever she was feeling, and being like, I was really hurting for you and wanted to be there for you, and I wasn't able to, and obviously you weren't able to ask for that. Like, I feel like there's a lot of unresolved conversation between the two of them that is just not going to happen now. They're just going to be like, well, we're together, all good.
Right. Yeah.
And it would have given her some dimension.
Yes, it's very, very quick. They basically just go from 0 to 1, and everything is everything is resolved.
She literally puts their hands together at the end. The Eleanor literally just puts each other's hands in each other's hands and is like, well, go live happily ever after. Bye.
Right. Yeah, guys. Well, I guess we have to move on. But there's another character thing that I guess I'll leave up to you because it was one of your suggestions. But it was the possibility of adding another lead character.
Yeah, if we're not gonna have any movement with Davy, I thought it would be, especially in the direction of Hanukkah and in the direction of that, if Davy's not going to be, because yes, he is Jewish, but he never really shows that he knows anything about it, and knows anything about what to do during Hanukkah. So it would have been interesting if there was some other lead guy who is actively trying to do Hanukkah related things, and maybe he has a super positive personality. Maybe he seems like he's a threat to Davy in terms of affection for Jennifer, who is a divorcee back in town, and it turns out that he doesn't even care for Jennifer like that, and there's just more competition for Davy to become a better person while also steering towards this theme of Hanukkah without having to go directly through Davy, because Davy's already doing all these other stuff personally developing.
Yeah, how about a rival character? Why not? I can think of plenty of rom-com style stuff as well as a bunch of holiday related movies,
but a nice one.
I mean, potentially. Well, that's what would make it funny too, is if he's genuinely a nice guy.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
and
like he's just really nice.
It's a clear character foil for Davy because he's awful, he's terrible, but he sees the effects of that, as opposed to Whitey, who is just like the purest character around, but who everyone also hates or disregards at the same time. So like Whitey honestly isn't the best example of like, here's what you get for being a good person, maybe in a super realistic sense, of like, some people don't care, they're selfish, they don't, they just want to take advantage of you. But like, yeah, certainly if it's getting in the way of what Davy wants and he has even a cynical motivation to try to be better, that's fine if it kicks things off and he starts to, maybe later on he would start doing good things for the right reason. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. It's something in the National Lampoon Christmas Vacation, I think, the Grinch live action movie. We have the Grinch himself has a rival character in the mayor, and then Mom, who has the rival of Woman, remember?
Yeah, of Martha. And
Martha May
Martha's not
Whovier.
even a terrible person. She's just hot and pretty.
Yeah, she's just doing her thing, and people like her,
the
and
same
you know, and she's better at doing the like domestic stuff, I guess, or something like that.
So yeah, I thought that would be really interesting, and it would just kind of give us a break between between having too much Whitey, which sounds hilarious, too much Whitey, and as our source of positivity, because like you said, there's a difference between being super super nice and then being super super nice and kind of letting everybody walk all over you. And when you watch it, sometimes you're just like, wow, no, everyone is really really mean. And me as an adult and as a person, yeah, I would volunteer my time to the community and try to give back, but I'm at the same time, I'm not letting another human being speak to me the way that Whitey is allowing these people to speak to them. Davy shouldn't be learning from him all the way.
Yeah, definitely. One of my other big suggestions overall, I think this movie should have been rated R. And that applies both to like, that would have been better as a rating and the audience it would have gone after with an R rating, and also just the content they would have had to put in to get it to an R rating. Because again, growing up, the impressions of the movie, the stuff they tended to show in ads and stuff was the more like crude, lowbrow humor stuff, right? It wasn't the happy, overdone holiday movie story beats. They realized those would not sell the movie. And if it had been that, I think I would respect it a whole lot more, you know?
For sure. It could have been a lot. I mean, like, just go for it. If it's gonna be an Adam Sandler type of movie, get that R rating and animate some weird stuff.
Exactly. And I'll get back to animation too as well, but like South Park remains the gold standard for like really heading hard in that direction. Like when they want to have an episode that's just extremely gross and violent and ugly, they do it, and they do it to the nines. Even if that's not necessarily my sense of humor or what I really like about the show, I do have a respect for that. And here, this felt like the perfect fit for that kind of humor. And there are little bits of it. And the biggest example we can point to is at the big town party when Guy talking with Hook Hand. No, not even that guy. It's the mayor or whatever.
The mayor.
Yeah. and he makes a bad joke, and then they just have this really long montage of people's completely insane reactions to the
Right.
bad joke. So we see the deer like pooping viciously.
Yeah,
right?
fart
Like, just
pooping.
insanely.
The deer with human teeth, might I add. Just
Yes, with the dirty human teeth, which is also funny. The deer are maybe the best part of the movie. There are kids like projectile throwing snot out of their noses. Does someone throw up or something? Like,
the Chinese waiter takes off his shirt and starts banging his head. Rob Schneider
yes,
starts to
Rob
bang
Schneider
his head
doing
on
a
the...
racist accent. Yes.
I know, it's so
Right,
cringe.
right.
And then Whitey gets up on the table and starts crawling, laughing, and then does like a push-up on
Yes.
the table.
Right. So like that was actually funny to me.
And the joke was trash.
Right, and that's what makes it funnier. It's just like nobody knows what to do, I guess, or some people do think it's funny, and you just have all these insane things happening. That felt like such a good fit for what I had always envisioned this movie to be, and it was crude and it was stupid, but it was actually funny. It was funny and it made sense, and it was also one of the few things that took advantage of the fact that this is an animated movie, because otherwise, 90% of the other stuff in the movie benefits in no way from being animated, or
Right.
it's all stuff that could have been done in live action, no problem.
Oh my
right?
gosh, that's what I had as one of my notes for story, is the fact that it's almost as if Adam Sandler forgot that this was animated, and except for, the mall hallucination scene, everything else seemed, like you said, pretty practical. And I'm like, this dude has so much air quotes creativity in him, and yet what is it, because he didn't want to actually play basketball in the movie?
The basketball scene is probably one of the more active scenes in the movie. And outside of that, I guess we have the mall scene that I mentioned earlier, where all the products are confronting Davy. That's vaguely creative, even though it feels cynically motivated because of the sheer volume of real-world product placement. At least it's something different and neat. Visually, I won't say exciting, but something. That's something that would have been much harder to do in live action at the time this movie was made and released. I don't know why it was animated in the first place. So many more fun ideas that you could have executed.
I mean, when it comes to animation versus not like live action, I kind of have I think it was always meant to be animated. I say that because I feel like Adam Sandler wanted to use a lot of his friends, and the best way to do that is to animate some stuff and just let them all do voices. All Adam Sandler movies, I just feel like are all of his friends just hanging out. And then at the end, a movie is made.
Which has been a point of criticism for many years. I'll say at least since Jack and Jill, because Jack and Jill was a turning point, I think, for like, especially critical reception of a lot of his stuff. Okay, so I mean, I feel like that's most of the big stuff. Some smaller things, I don't know. Do we want to briefly touch on all the stuff that would now be considered very much in bad taste?
We could go, just don't even really have notes on it, but if we just start going, I'm sure we off the top of our head could get a good amount.
Yeah, so the fat shaming stuff and the body image stuff is definitely a big thing. And I remember that especially because they put that in all the commercials and the trailers, was his sick burn on the fat kid.
For no reason. For
in the
no
basketball
reason
game.
at all.
Right.
And then just further traumatizes him in front of his parents, which I'm like, punch him in the face. I don't know why my mom would have been all over Davey if he had said that to me, for sure. There's some transphobia, but at the same time, it's not transphobia. Maybe if you want to think about it in a positive way, it might have been ahead of its time, air quotes. During the Long Ago song, we find out that the mayor's wife is trans, but like the way that they animate the wife, it's one of those that it's clearly, the person's clearly still like just, kind of dressing up as a woman, and you don't really know that all the way without them saying that. So I guess on one way you could think about it, they're trying to just casually say it, but then also that it's not being done in a positive way, right?
No, yeah, the purpose is for a joke.
You have the Chinese waiter who gets dined and dashed in the first like scene, and just has lots of little one-liners that you're like, why?
And he doesn't even need to be there. Like he's in that first scene, and then he shows up. He's around at the end of
Right.
the movie.
And since it's Rob Schneider, you have that glaring, it's supposed to be the equivalent of both Adam Sandler and Rob Schneider, depending on who's the lead in the movie, of the "you can do it" character.
There's all that stuff. What else we got? I don't know. That's a big part of it.
Oh, I mean, just ableism and just blatant making fun of Whitey and his disability, I guess. I don't know if it's technically a disability if he's just really short and has uneven feet, but calling him different names, calling him a jackass in a box when he falls from a tree.
Yeah.
And just making fun of their height and and
his body hair as well.
And his body's hair, of course.
Yes.
Course.
So do you have any other big notes or things?
This movie had a lot of potential, and I wonder sometimes if Adam Sandler watches this back with his kids and goes, man, I should have made some other choices for this. Whether it be to make it more raunchy, more gross and whatnot, or, the opposite. I always wonder if he has kind of regrets with this movie and how he did it, just because I know that this one was supposed to be different or should have been different.
I see. Yeah, that's totally fair. I doubt he watches it.
I know, right?
I don't know if he's thought about it. But you know what? Before we close out here, which we will have to do, I wanted to share some other takes.
Sure.
I didn't want it to just be us going on and on about what we think. So I took a trip over to the Google reviews.
Oh no!
For this movie. Google reviews for movies are endlessly fascinating to me. And they are worlds apart from the ratings and reviews on literally any other website or social media thing, because I don't know, IMDb, this movie's sitting at a 5.3.
Oh wow.
On Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's in the teens for critic reviews and maybe 20% range for audience score. On Metacritic, it's sitting at a 23. It's down there in the basement, but I hopped on over to Google reviews, and I'd just like to read you a few of these and get your reaction.
Bring it.
Okay. All right.
On.
This gentleman 3 years ago, and I think it's important to note when the reviews were written. Well, I definitely agree that the film is a complete mess with stereotypes, lack of cheerfulness, and too many toilet jokes. I enjoy some elements in 8 Crazy Nights. For a holiday film, the 2D animation is beautifully well done, and I can sense where the story is going through, with our main character named Davey, played by Adam Sandler, struggling with alcoholism and anger issues due to the loss of his parents. They're trying to acknowledge some of the issues, so I can appreciate that for sure. That's fine.
Yeah.
This next one is a real humdinger. What a grand film. The magnum opus of filmmaker Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler plays a retired rodeo clown named Tito Dickman.
Yes.
He is living it up with his grandma in Tijuana, Mexico, when his life gets turned upside down because his girlfriend cheats on him with a gay antelope lacrosse player. What are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, it's close. It's very, very close.
And by the way, 52 people found this review helpful. So, okay, I need to find another good one here. I loved the movie. It's way better than any other holiday, even though it was made before I was born, but still really good. Adam Sandler, please watch. It is really, 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 really good. Only about 8 to 9 swear words, but it's still really good. 5 stars.
Yay, it made
2
it.
years ago. Yeah. I honestly don't care about the hate on this movie. It was great, in my opinion, all caps and each of the letters spaced out for some reason.
Oh boy.
It was great in my opinion, TBH, and it was my childhood movie. So I'd say it was pretty great.
Fair. I mean, I did I write that? I don't know. Since I watched it when I was younger, I feel protective over it. I know it's not the best, and I know it could be better, but I still feel very protective over it.
It's my childhood movie, as they say. A lot of positive takes on Google reviews. A lot of people stating the obvious in terms of its drawbacks. A real humdinger of a movie, I guess we could say.
Sure was. The songs are catchy. Cause let's break it down even not even break it down. Let's broaden it even more. Were the songs okay? Yeah. They're fine. Was the outcome okay? We got a happy family at the end. Whitey got his patches. Eleanor got her wig back. The movie happened. We got a story. We got some songs that are catchy and will stick in our heads for a really long time.
Yeah, that's probably about as far as I would go in terms of the positives, is to call it a movie. Again, it's really not the dated elements of this 20-year-old movie that bother me so much. It's the movie parts of the movie. and just the confusion I feel when I see some of the decisions made, and all for something that I don't think we had mentioned yet is an hour and 18 minutes. Like, it is by some guidelines, it doesn't even qualify as a feature film because it is so short. And if you're interested, I believe it's available to watch for free on YouTube now. At least in the US. I don't know how it is for other places.
Oh yeah.
But gosh, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for joining me for this
Thank you
discussion.
for having me. I hope I provided something.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
You can't workshop something alone. And
oh no, my watch.
thank you to everybody who managed to make it to the end.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. Share your own thoughts on this movie or talk about better holiday movies.
Smash that like button. Like and subscribe.
Sure, yeah. And
thank you.
For
Happy
by.
holidays. Happy Hanukkah.